This morning we are reading from the final chapter of the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 12. In Daniel chapter 12, or 10 and 11, Daniel received a vision from a heavenly messenger, and that vision continues as we begin Daniel chapter 12, the time of the end. At that time, Michael, the archangel who stands guard over your nation, will arise. Then there will be a time of anguish greater than any since nations first came into existence. But at that time, every one of your people whose name is written in the book will be rescued. Many of those whose bodies lie dead and buried will rise up, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting disgrace. Those who are wise will shine as bright as the sky, and those who lead many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever. But you, Daniel, keep this prophecy a secret. Seal up the book until the time of the end, when many will rush here and there, and knowledge will increase. Then I, Daniel, looked and saw two others standing on opposite banks of the river. One of them asked the man dressed in linen, who was now standing above the river, "How long will it be until these shocking events are over?" The man dressed in linen, who was standing above the river, raised both his hands toward heaven and took a solemn oath by the one who lives forever, saying, "It will go on for a time, times, and half a time. When the shattering of the holy people has finally come to an end, all these things will have happened." I heard what he said, but I did not understand what he meant. So I asked, "How will all this finally end, my Lord?" But he said, "Go now, Daniel, for what I have said is kept secret and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, cleansed, and refined by these trials. But the wicked will continue in their wickedness, and none of them will understand. Only those who are wise will know what it meant. From the time the daily sacrifices stopped, and the sacrilegious object that causes desecration is set up to be worshipped, there will be 1,290 days. And blessed are those who wait and remain until the end of the 1,335 days. As for you, go your way until the end. You will rest, and then at the end of the days, you will rise again to receive the inheritance set aside for you." The word of the Lord.
Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Good to see you here today. Word has it that the people of Norway are familiar with what are called escape rooms, that there are apparently places here in Stavanger and Bergen and Oslo. If you're not familiar with them, they're simply locations set up by companies where they buy out an office complex or a store, and they create these rooms in which you would go and you'd pay a fee. A host would take you to said room, and then you have 60 minutes to solve the puzzle, to solve the problem that is confronting you in that particular room. Well, it was a number of years ago, it was Christmas time, where my children decided that for Dad's Christmas present, they were going to take me to a place called Fox in the Box in Chicago. Fox in the Box, I don't know how many rooms they had. I saw doors upon doors. We actually only did 2 of the rooms. You can see on the left, that's me kneeling down, the young guy with the bearded fellows. And we did a military one where we had to find keys to, what's it called when you got a bomb's going to go off. You got to, you got to disarm the bomb. Okay. The other one, thieves had stolen jewels, and we had to go into a room and find where they had hidden them so we could return them to their owner. It was great fun. 60 minutes or so we were in there. Now, the clues were all around the room. In the one, military kind of clues. The other were just secrets or things that you would find. And there were lots of them in the room. However, I wish I could say that we solved all our problems, our puzzles, by the clues that were right there. But sometimes there were so many of them that we would get them all didn't know which one went where, And what the hostess that showed us to our rooms let us know is that she will be watching. And she was. She knew everything that we were working on and putting pieces together. And every once in a while, we would get stumped. Maybe twice in each room. And there was a red button on the wall. And if we got desperate enough, we would go over and we'd punch the red button. And through a slot in the wall would come another clue. And that clue would either tell us how we're not thinking clearly, because she's been watching us, or she would point out something else in the room that we would miss, and voila, all of a sudden we'd be off and running again, and we'd be putting things together and getting really excited. And you see the picture on the left? I mean, we were like rocket scientists in that room. We finished with 6 minutes to go. Of course, our hostess made us feel real big because she said there are a lot of people that never even solved this room, and others that they maybe do it with only 30 seconds left. So 6 minutes? Oh, baby, we were something else because the clues were there. We just had to figure them out. Don't you wish life was like that? Anybody here face problems? Well, actually, maybe I should ask it the other way around. Anybody here not face problems? Raise your hand and then we'll all look at you like you're really strange. And so you got these problems, but you get to impasses. You get to points where you don't know what to do. Why can't you just push a button on the wall and into your brain slides another clue that says, think of this or look over there? My guess is that the majority of us, when it comes to these kinds of things, what we would prefer is just give us all the clues we need. And we'll figure it out because we like to, Well, my illustration here is that we're all living in an escape room, whether we know that or not. This is an escape room. And this morning, what we're doing is we're jumping to Daniel chapter 12, and you're saying, whoa, we were in chapter 6 last week. Well, 7 through 11 are the prophetic passages within the book of Daniel, and it's fascinating. If you would take the study yourself, what you find is that book, Daniel, was written somewhere in the 500s BCE, and that all of the things that have happened down through the ages were previewed in those chapters. They're in there. Fascinating study. I would encourage you to do it yourself, but since this morning is my last morning with you, we're jumping to the end. And besides, those chapters didn't really fit with the focus of what in the name of God am I doing here. Those first 6 chapters were really very appropriate, were they not? But here in chapter 12, God's kind of wrapping things up with Daniel. And if you noticed in what Maggie read, that there are 3 beings, one dressed in linen, whatever that actually means. It must be the more powerful angel. And then there's 2 other guys, one on either side of the bank, and they're asking questions. And Daniel asks his own. I heard what that angel in linen said. I just didn't understand what he meant. So I asked, how will this all finally end, my Lord? Isn't that kind of a major question that we and pretty much all people have? Where's this all going? How does it end? Well, unfortunately, the angel said, no, Daniel, go. What I have said is kept secret, sealed until the time of the end. In other words, Daniel, I have given you and all those after you plenty of clues for what's coming. And again, fortunately for us, we can actually go back to chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and we can say, look, this happened here, this happened there, this was what God did, and this was all spoken of hundreds of years before it actually transpired. What's beautiful about Daniel chapter 12 is that God is giving us a glimpse into eternity to help us see what's really important in terms of the eternal. Now, I have to tell you that as I researched this message, I went to Google and I typed in words like eternity and Google gave me 752,000 sites of cartoons, jokes, books, all poking fun at eternity. Meaning, it seems that it's okay for us to joke about it. But have you ever tried to have a serious conversation with, say, a coworker or your neighbor? You bring up the question of eternity. What kind of response do you get? If you've never done that, just try it as a test this week and just bring up the topic. What will happen is that the person will either withdraw from you and say, well, why don't we talk about football? And if it was for me, I'd say, which football? But let's talk about something other than eternity. Or the discussion can get rather heated, can it? This is one of those topics where people feel very strongly about it, because I think many people, maybe most people, they don't want to think about it. They're a little like the guy that I read about, inherited a considerable amount of money, and then promptly went out and squandered said money so that he didn't even have enough left to live on. And he came up with this brilliant solution. He just decided not to ever go to his mailbox again, because if he doesn't go to the mailbox, he doesn't see the bills, and if he doesn't see the bills aren't there, right? Is that how it works? No. Well, isn't that the same about eternity? That if I just don't think about it, if I just don't talk about it, it'll go away. Really? Denying the fact that every single generation prior to the 20th century is now dead and gone. Every single last person is gone. How are we reminded of that? Well, all we have to do is drive by a cemetery, right? Go by a lot of churches. There are these little stones that remind us it's coming. Every single one of us, it's coming. For me, though, what's unfortunate, doubly unfortunate, I think, here, is that talking about eternity shouldn't be so much a debate of disagreement, and talking about eternity can be something of great joy, of great hope, particularly at those times, those places, those things that we call a funeral. It can give us perspective. It can give us confidence in life. And so Daniel here, he says, okay, God has revealed, we're in the room. The problem is what happens at the end. And so there's two pieces to Daniel chapter 12. What can we expect after the grave? Okay, now maybe for some that sounds a little contradictory, because there are those who believe that there's nothing after the grave. Well, let me tell you that the Bible doesn't agree with that. The grave is not the end of the road. It may be the end of one's mortal life. It'll be the end of my mortal life, and the older I get, the more I'm thankful for this. Because if I had to drag this carcass around for all eternity, I don't think so. So the mortal life will end, but not the soul. That real part of us, that's me looking through these windows at you. You're looking at the body, but the real me's inside. Same here. I'm looking at all these bodies, but the real you is inside. And the Bible says that goes on forever. In fact, Daniel chapter 12, verse 2 is probably one of the clearest Old Testament passages relative to what happens after the grave. Many of those whose bodies lie dead and buried will rise up. Okay. More is to come when we breathe our last breath. And this isn't the only Old Testament passage. Take a look at Isaiah 26. But those who die in the Lord will live. Their bodies will rise again. Those who sleep in the earth will rise up and sing for joy. The resounding truth throughout Old Testament, New Testament, is that human beings are not merely time-bound creatures. We are not merely temporal beings. God created people with eternal souls. We've just got to understand that. That's how it works. Think this example. Do you find in the scriptures, if you know your Bible, that God says, I was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Is that how it goes? What does God say? I am. And what does that imply? That Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're still around. Now, wait a minute. I know history enough that they died centuries ago. No. Their bodies died. God is still their God because they are still with him now. So, in a way, when you read those obituaries, however you get them, through a newspaper or online, that say Jane Doe died, that's only partially right. Her body died. Where is she? We live in an area of the Americas that's called the Bible Belt. We live in the South. And it's interesting that the vast majority of the obituaries that are in the newspaper there say something like, so-and-so went to be with his Lord. So-and-so graduated to his eternal home. The emphasis being that, yeah, the body's gone, but they aren't. So Daniel chapter 12 says, all those who die. Okay. Who here knows he or she is going to die? All right. So all those who are going to die means who? All of us will be resurrected. Here's a New Testament passage that goes along with this. Revelation 20. I saw the dead, both great and small, standing before God's throne. The sea gave up its dead, and death and the grave gave up their dead. No matter how you cut it, folks, the Bible says the show is not over at the grave. There's more to come. Now, I know that the idea is not terribly shocking to most of you, because if you talk to people, what you find is that they probably would agree with you, especially if you go to a funeral. Because at the funeral, they always talk about moving on, or some better place, or something like that. Particularly at a funeral. The assumption is that everybody's going to be okay, right? Well, okay, except for the worst of the worst. Hitler, it's not going to be okay for him. Stalin, maybe Anders Breivik, not going to be okay for him. But for everybody else, it'll be okay. Well, is that what the Bible says. Well, let's continue on with Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. Many of those whose bodies lie dead and buried will rise up, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting disgrace. See, if you go to your scriptures, what you find is that there are basically two possibilities. They're right there. Right there. Everlasting life and everlasting shame and disgrace. See, I think that for most people, they struggle with a little bit on this verse. They don't struggle with the everlasting life thing, heaven. Most people have some conception of what heaven would be. What we don't like is the point about hell. However, again, the Bible is very clear. In fact, it talks just as much about hell as the eternal nature of the soul. Old Testament, you will find over 30 references to hell. It may be a different word that may use Hades or Sheol or something like that, but it's hell. New Testament, you got over 20 references. Jesus himself said this, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul in hell." Of those 20 plus references to hell in the New Testament, 14 of them belong to Jesus. Now you might think, well, why is he talking about such negative things? Why does he bring that up? Because, ladies and gentlemen, he wants us to know it exists, that it's there. Now, there would be some who would say, well, I don't get it. Why would a good God send anybody to hell? You know what the answer is? He doesn't. But I thought you said there's a hell. Yes, there is a hell. You see it there on the screen. I said, when you come to your last breath, there are two eternal possibilities. One is to live where God is. The other is to live where God isn't. Where God is what we know as heaven. Where God isn't is what we know as hell. So how do we determine where we're going? Well, if we choose to have God in our life now, meaning if we surrender our lives to him, if we accept what he did for us through the death of his son on the cross, if we are in union with him and live with him now, at death we will simply transition to that place where God is for eternity. Flip side, if I choose not to be in relationship with God, if I choose not to submit to his power and authority and right to rule, if I choose to reject what Jesus did for me on the cross, then at death, I go where he eternally isn't. The choice is made now. Death simply makes it permanent. See, as I told you, the Bible says there is a hell. When you step from this life into eternity, you step into that which you have chosen all of your days. Two places: where God is or where God isn't. Where God is heaven. Where God isn't is hell. And I have to tell you, I am personally very glad that God says this kind of stuff in the Bible. I know there's some of us that we don't like the feel of it or whatever. But if he doesn't tell us, how are we going to know? I'll use a silly illustration. It was back many years ago when Maggie first got pregnant with our first child. And some of you are going, oh, whoa, that was a lot of years ago. But as the pregnancy became known, people would begin to tell their stories of how just horrid labor and delivery is, and the sleepless nights that you will live with for however many years. And then you have to pass through the terrible twos that can last until they're 10 years old, and all this kind of stuff, you know? Now, it was intimidating. Not that we didn't know a lot of that stuff. People just felt that it was their obligation to warn us. Where we were glad is that when those kinds of things did happen, then we weren't caught by surprise. We were more ready to deal with what was coming. And then you go on from there. They didn't so much talk about the delightful things, the fun things, the funny things. And now that our children are our best friends, nobody talks much about that. I'm so glad somebody took time to say in the scriptures, here's what you can expect at the grave. Everlasting life, or shame and everlasting disgrace. In other words, the nature of people is that we have soul that's eternal. More is coming after the grave. Okay, so what do we do about that? Good question. That's the other part of Daniel chapter 12. What must we do before the grave? You know, we're in the escape room. We've got all this stuff around us, but we know death is going to come sooner or later. Well, here's what Daniel suggests to us, not suggests, but tells us. But at that time, every one of your people whose name is written in the book will be rescued. What book is the angel talking about? Well, this same wording appears in the final book of the Bible, in the book of Revelation. I saw the dead, both great and small, standing before God's throne, and the books were opened, including the book of life, and the dead were judged according to what they had done as recorded in the books. Meaning, if the name is in the book, you're okay. Now, you might suggest that, wait. That sounds kind of cut and dry. Isn't God being cruel and unjust to have this kind of Damocles sword hanging over our heads? No. He's told us everything we need to know. The clues are all around us. If in the eternal ages you find yourself in trouble, it's not because God didn't warn you. He did. Let's use this illustration. I would imagine that there were a number of you who grew up in a household like I did. That my parents warned me about certain things. Don't do this. Don't go there. Don't, right? And so our inclination is we would hear our parents, but then what would we do? We would do the very thing they said don't do. We would go the very place. Now, why did they not want us to do or go to these places? Because we would either get in trouble or we would get hurt. So when we did them, what happened to us? We got in trouble or we got hurt. And if you have parents like mine, they said the 4 famous words of the parent. What did they say? Okay, you did have parents like mine. I told you so. I told you don't go there. I told you don't do this. And we did it anyway. So therefore, if I got hurt, if I was in trouble, is it my fault or their fault? You see, we've come to recognize that people that say, no, it's God's fault, it's always somebody else's fault, that they're not healthy, that there's something wrong. Those of us that have a straight brain realize, I know all along. I knew what to expect. Well, here's this passage in the scriptures, that in eternity, if I find myself in trouble, is it God's fault or is it mine? He's already told me. And fortunately, he's not the kind of God that says, I told you so. He gives us every opportunity, every chance, and every... So here he says again, everyone whose name is in the book will be rescued. That's pretty simple. Well, yeah, but maybe you're still sitting here saying, well, okay, I'm still not sure, how do I get my name in that book? Okay, well, here's what Jesus said in John 14. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And then Peter, years later, standing before the Jewish leadership, says there is salvation, meaning that eternal life after death, in no one else. God has given no other name under heaven by which we must be saved. Okay, we all know that there are people that chafe at that. Why is Jesus the only way? How come it's not other beliefs? How come it's not other religions? Well, the first and simplest answer is because it's God's party. He created all of this, all that's around us and all in eternity, and he says, I want you all to come. But he told us how to do it. I'll use another illustration. And we'll put this all on our wonderful Pastor David's shoulders. But on Tuesday, he is planning a great big party for Sitnamai, right? And he's inviting all of you to come. And it's going to be Tuesday afternoon at 1600, is that right? It's at 4 in the afternoon. And it's going to be where? Madla Beresus? Is that how you saw it? Well, you know. Forgive my Norwegian. And that's where the party's going to be. And it can be inside, it can be outside, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. But let's say you decide, I don't like parties on Tuesday. I only go to parties on Saturday. And I don't like parties in the afternoon. I like to party at night. It's fun. And I don't want to be at this house of prayer. Let's go to Three Swords where we can run around and there's playground place for the people and there's this food thing trailer and I can get softies. All I want. Are we having softies? Kurt's bringing it? You're bringing the softies. Sweet. Okay, good. I'm glad we straightened that out. You're welcome, everyone. Are you going to find David and his party with your choice? Now, is there anything wrong with going to Three Swords on Saturday evening and getting softies? No. But if you want the church's party, you're not going to find us there. If you want God's party, God says this is how it works. Nothing wrong with you picking your choice. You're just not going to make it. Now, again, the question is why? Well, the second thing, and I'm going to try to keep this fairly simple theologically. There are a lot of terms I could throw around, but essentially, God understood that when he created people, people would rebel. All of us, every single one of us here has rebelled in multiple ways. For what we've done, we must pay a price, a penalty. And there's only two ways to deal with that. One, we have to pay the penalty ourselves, or someone else pays the penalty for us. It's a little complicated, but that's how it works. So when it comes to eternity, you can choose to try to pay the penalty for yourself. Or you can choose the way that God did it through his Son. And the reason is, folks, when you step into that eternal home, do you want it a perfect home or an imperfect home? Are you thinking about it, or are you being Norwegian? Because let's go all the way back to the beginning of the story here on earth. What was it that made earth such a mess? A piece of fruit. Do we have any Roman Catholics background here? Okay. Would an apple be called a venial sin or a mortal sin? A venial sin. I mean, it was a little sin. It was an apple. It wasn't a big one. Not until Cain did his thing. It was a little sin. Heaven cannot admit anything that might destroy its imperfection. And that includes me, and that includes you, because I can't get rid of all my sins. Even if I could live a perfect life from here on out, what do I do with all my yesterdays? You can't live a perfect life. The only one who can wash it perfectly clean is Jesus. That's the theological explanation of why it is what it is. Okay? When you break the law, you have a choice. I fix it, or he fixes it. The issue is, will you believe God when he said, I did it the only way it will work? Or will you keep saying, no. It can be this, it can be that. Look at all the good people. There's a lot of good people. I love people. That's not the question in our escape room. The question is, what happens at the end? So, Daniel goes on to say, many will be purified, cleansed, and refined by these trials. It's going to be tough. But the wicked will continue in their wickedness, and none of them will understand. Only those who are wise will know what it means. That's a pretty tough verse, isn't it? Some of the terms, and of course we're wondering, Mike, why are you spending so much time on this subject? This is North Sea Baptist Church. We believe all this stuff. We know all this stuff. Well, yeah, no. Because the statistics I find, things are changing in our world and in our church. For example, a survey by the American Association of Retired People, I don't know if the statistics translate over here to Norway, but they found in America, 86% of people with silver hair like mine believe in heaven. And at least 70 of us still believe in hell. However, George Barna did a survey of millennials, the younger generations. Here are the statistics. 52%, they don't know. They're uncertain about heaven and hell. 10% believe we return to earth in some other form. Another 10% believe there's no life after death. 20% believe that the soul lives in a different state, but again, no real clarity as to what that state is. And then 8% can't make up their mind. George Harris did a similar poll, similar numbers. Let me say, if you are part of that younger generation here this morning, pay attention to this. Because your subculture is dragging you to a point where you just don't know the question about the end. Hence the phrase, those who are wise will know what it means. Because folks, the clues are all around you. They're in the room. You have everything you need. So I guess the greater question is, are you looking? Are you wise? And though maybe I'll suggest that there is one piece missing, okay? And I'll end with this. See this picture? What do you notice on the back wall? It's called a clock. Good, okay. When our hostess closed the door, and you heard the door latch, the clock started counting down from 60 minutes. And each second, it just did a little beep, 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 beep. Now, it was light enough that at the beginning, because we had 59 minutes or more and we were working together, I wasn't even paying attention to it. But at one point, I looked up and it was down to 29 minutes. And I swear that beep went to beep, 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 beep. And I'm going, oh, come on, guys. Hit the button, hit the stupid button. When it was under 15 minutes, it was so loud, I couldn't hear myself think. I'm going, this is driving me crazy. Beep, beep, beep. And when it was all over, I asked the hostess and she said, no, it doesn't change. It's just I knew the time was getting close. Wouldn't it be nice if all of us had a clock on our wall and we could play and party and fool but whoa, we're down to 10 minutes. Oh, Jesus, forgive my soul. We think that would be nice. Doesn't work that way though, does it? We just don't know. Although we do know this, it is now 12 o'clock. Sunday afternoon, May 15th. You are now 1 hour shorter in your life than you were an hour ago. You're 1 day shorter than you were yesterday. You're 1 week shorter than you were last week, and it goes on. Do we need any more clock than that? The clock is ticking. The only problem is that we don't know. We don't know how much time we have left. Please hear me. The choice you make today, because today is all you got, is the choice you will live with for eternity if today is your last. Does that compute? Hold on. There it is. Everyone whose name is written in the book of life will be rescued. That's why I say talks of eternity can be filled with hope. I am not afraid. If today's my last day, I'm okay with that. Well, no, because then you're going to have to ship my dead body home. That's tacky. I'll wait till I get home, Dave. Okay. I'll wait till I get home. But I'm not afraid. I pray that you're not. Did you notice the title of my sermon? Timing is everything. Time's all you got. When it runs out, 2 possibilities. Eternal heaven or eternal shame. The choice you make now decides then. That's Daniel chapter 12. And that's the whole story. So let's bow our heads and close our eyes. And for most of you, you're just going to be able to say, God, thank you. Thank you that in your grace, you made this truth clear to me. But if you're here this morning and you're not quite sure, let me suggest you not making a big thing of this, just in the silence of your heart, you alone between you and God. Why don't you say something to him like, God, for some reason it finally makes sense this morning. And I want to be one of those wise people. I want to be with you for eternity. In fact, I want to be with you right now and for the rest of my life. So I accept what Jesus did for me on the cross. And I ask that in your grace, you would forgive me and make me part of your family. And then fill me with your Spirit so that I might live like you and with you for the rest of my days. I ask this prayer not because I have anything to offer you, but my brokenness. I ask this prayer, however, putting my trust in what you promised, in and through the name of Jesus, who is my Savior. Amen.